Hello everybody and welcome to Embassy Podcast. Today we are here with our third episode of the show, and today's conversation is going to be about contemporary jazz, choreography, multimedial performance and songwriting and improvisation. Today with our amazing guest Beatriz Gijón, who is joining us today for the podcast, talking about her projects working within the field of contemporary jazz in Aarhus, and improvisation and songwriting and production. Beatriz is also a student of the soloist line of the music conservatory here in Aarhus, and has been working a lot in creating performances both in the context of the conservatory and as an entrepreneur and a musician. I'm very excited to have you here today on the show, Bea. How are you doing today?
Hi, Jonathan. Thank you for having me. And yes, I'm doing good. I'm really happy to be part of this podcast.
Cool, amazing. I'm also happy to have you here today. I will say your music, Beatriz, has a lot of influences, as far as I have seen it, in terms of combining not only contemporary jazz composition and performance, but also fields of choreography, fields of kind of like poetry, spoken words. So in that regard, I'm also interested in hearing a little bit about your new project Onbeat and this idea of your new band, I will say, of people that you have been creating music with and also performing with. So let's just have a listen here to the recording.
Sure.
I was fortunate enough to catch you at your live show that you did the last time with your project. Can you describe that experience a little bit? How was it to make this performance that was blend of not only music but dance and vocal performance and sound design as well, using contact microphones and everything? How was that experience to make this performance?
Yes. Well, as you say, it was really a mix of a lot of objects, medium, and interest that I had. First, my first instrument is piano, and then I've been training my voice as well. But then I've been also interested in body and dance and movement in another facet besides sound and music. So in this concert I wanted to start melding those fields that are part of me. So I decided to create this first solo movement part with, as you say, contract microphones and field recordings. And then, the rest of the concert will be more like a more traditional band setting.
Exactly. That is always such an interesting interplay between to have this multimedial performance. And how really can you talk a little bit how came this band to be Onbeat? You know, how was it really established? Like how did you meet each other? How was the idea of the band kind of like being presented, and how have you been working with the band?
Yeah, well, the band started because I was having more and more ideas, more and more songs that I really wanted to play with basically jazz musicians, but not necessarily just because it's so easy to improvise with them. And I was trying with different musicians. It was just difficult to find a stable setting to play with. But finally, I did find really wonderful musicians that were happy actually to play my music.
Right.
So that was a process to find it. And then also to make them understand that this is an experimental band, that we have a space for traditional composition, but also this other incursion into interdisciplinary arts.
Yeah, for sure. That's amazing, and over the years, me and myself, I've also been trying out some of the jazz scene here in Aarhus, and I can say that to me it's always interesting to see the jazz scene as a kind of like diverse field of multicultural kind of like performers coming and applying their own kind of like sound towards something that treads the kind of the balance between conventionality of jazz music, but always innovating this field of jazz music that at least in my experience of the Aarhus scene has. I will always say that the jazz scene probably has been one of the biggest innovators of music in the last many years. Not just obscure jazz, but also developing very popular acts of music from the scene as well. So in that regard, I'm interested in hearing also kind of like how your journey led you here to Aarhus.
Yeah.
And how this and also kind of like so maybe if we can talk about this, because originally you're from Spain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. From south of Spain, from Granada.
Yeah.
And actually, my background, I studied there a Bachelor of Classical Piano. And then I decided to not play more classical music by the moment. And then because I just wanted to study more deeply jazz and improvised music in general.
Yeah.
But then I was really willing to learn other kind of musics as well. So I was looking for a master that could be this open and meet different musicians from different cultures as well. And I found this opportunity in Aarhus, actually, and also Helsinki in Finland.
Okay.
Because it was a two-institution master.
Yeah, so it was like a choice between one of the other.
Yeah, and then I passed time, a semester also in Helsinki, studying there.
Okay, yeah.
So I studied this global music master, actually, that was not focused only in jazz, but it was more about to make music with people from different backgrounds. And that allowed me to really explore, really be open and not... adjust myself to one line or direction, but try to find the lines that relate more with my musical creativity, my inspiration, or my personal approach.
Okay, that's amazing. So when you're composing, do you think a lot in terms of composing for piano, or do you think a lot in terms of creating ideas for multidisciplinary performance, or how do you go about this approach? Because as you mentioned, you had this classical upbringing, so would you also say that your roots are kind of like found in this classical kind of like a tradition of piano playing, and how has it? And then how has that meeting that you thought about different kind of cultures and coming together to create new music, to create new musical ideas and meetings? How really have you seen the influence of kind of like this new band that you have been playing with, and all these musicians that you've been meeting? How have you seen this reflect on the music that you're writing? You know.
Yeah. Well, from my background, until arriving to this band Onbeat, I guess it has been really intuitive process as well, because at first I was not sure I wanted to compose. For example, I knew that I was passionate about free improvisation because it allowed me to have a field where I can really explore this creativity. But then when I was listening to more music and more free improvisation, I felt the need to put some order to my ideas. Yeah. And then I started, always with some piano ideas, but as you imagined, you feel that you need more. It's not a solo
no, it's
piano what I do. So my imaginarium was always to have at least a group of musicians ensemble to work with, and voice, because I've been also working with voice. I composed something for big band as well, and that was really fun. Yeah. But less, a bit more difficult to release. No, it's always easier with less people.
Yeah, for sure. And what about because now you came here for studying your master, moved to Aarhus. So how did the effect of moving to Denmark really change your musicianship? Like is it a very different culture from, let's say, the music culture in Spain where you grew up, or was there a change that was profound in any way like this? So
definitely it's a different music scene. The biggest difference, I would say, is in the education institution, where I found that when I was studying in Spain, it was more about learning the tradition, and later on you can have or discover your own approach, but the institution just give you the guidance for the tradition.
Okay, yeah.
And here, discovering that you have just a few tools that you can use. The teachers don't necessarily guide you into a style, but just give you some tools, some feedback, and then it's you that you have to create your own approach. It's pretty much based on be independent and create your own path somehow here. So that has affected me a lot, because it really has given me the freedom to create Onbeat, create other collaborations that I'm part of. I would say the artistic freedom it's the main reason I'm still here.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I think, especially for experimental music, there's a lot of possibilities in the Scandinavian scene in general. It seems like there is a lot of general openness towards artists that are innovators. So that is definitely something I can also see. And I also would like to just ask a little more into your background as well, like what really inspired your pursuit of music as a professional career path as well. Can you explain a little bit what motivated you or inspired you in order to have this vision of meeting cultures, of meeting people, of meeting of through the medium of music in this way? What really motivated you for this kind of process?
Well, I have to say that actually in the beginning it's not romantic at all. I just I started playing piano as a hobby from when I was really young, and then I was about to go to university, and then actually started a degree in biochemistry. Then I started a bachelor on piano as well. So I really didn't know that I was gonna continue music.
Right.
It was just a decision based on I have a limited time. And it's really difficult to do this, both science and music at the same time.
Oh yeah. So music won out in the end.
Yes, music won, but just basically because it was already a kind of habit, and my feeling, it was like I cannot stop.
Do you think music is a science? In some way, like a anthropologically oriented science, or maybe like a technology of feelings.
I definitely see connections to science. I think music is an art, but this is another field that I'm interested in, actually, the connections between science, or what you can do in science, and what you can do in music or art. And I'm having some collaborations now with scientists, and recovering maybe this part of me that wants to research and wants to know more about life in a more scientific method. But again, I see that as art as well. So I think it's really connected, but maybe not synonyms.
No, yeah. I mean, I guess it's more like instead of trying to explain, music tries to state in a way, tries to express, tries to showcase in a way all of these things that is being analyzed and discussed by multiple fields of science, like this connection of sociology, of ethnology. I don't know if that's the right ethnomusicology. Exactly. Yeah. So I guess it's also it also comes down to kind of like more of performing music. Comes down to also an idea of having more of a kind of like tendency to exist in a state of kind of like musical trance, because once again music is also a kind of like often a wordless language. So it's more like a language that kind of like takes you to a more kind of like deeper level in some way, you know, like
and as you say, now relating with my inspirations, because I come from this maybe more abstract classical music, a lot of what I do is based purely on sound, not that much on words. But if I put some lyrics to the songs, it's because maybe it comes from a different place. So in this case, a personal experience or some emotions. But I would say generally I compose based on sound, on what I want to hear, or the ideas that are purely frequencies. Yeah, different sounds.
Unsoiled promises, yet to be broken by the cold swiftness of time. Hands sweeping through bare torso, necks bent sharply to the side, kissed in a darkened room of a derelict city house with broken floorboards and no heating. Depression has made me lose my head, and I have become something simpler. A hard pit, and I have become something simpler. A heartbeat, and I have become something similar. A heartbeat. These bodies do not notice the blackened mold on ivory white walls, spores exploding all about the room in a storm of sordid dust that settles on the skin, and we do not brush away.
when talking before about this idea that you couldn't perform piano music by your own. You have to have the meeting, the musical meeting between different musicians, different artists, different people, different, in some sense, storytellers, I guess.
Yeah.
It leads me to think a lot about this situation that has occurred in the last 1.5 years, or how long has it been? Almost 2 years now.
I think it's less, but it seems a long time.
It seems it seems like a long time. It seems like a very transformational time that has occurred really for many musicians throughout the pandemic as well. And also a tendency that kind of like has come in prolongation of another tendency that I will say is the emergence of the musician as the solo artist, which has kind of like been driven, of course, by the advance of digital technology. So in that regard, suddenly it becomes more rare to see this kind of like collaborational storytelling. You know, it takes and a lot of the music has become more individualized, which maybe also reflect on the way we listen to music as well, being more isolated as well. So, in your experience, how has really been the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the musicians, on yourself, of course, and the musicians that you know? And
yeah, definitely. I think I've gone a lot into making music with my computer, actually, and discovering these ways to make music alone somehow. But I would say I've been always trying to look for the collaboration with others. So for me, I started doing some distance collaboration with, for example, a dancer, my friend from South Africa, Julia, and then we were sending each other sound material, and she was sending me some dance choreography, and individually we would put them together. And we would also make improvisations through Zoom, you know the platform, I'm sure, also YouTube, and trying to find actually the new frame that we have to work with. So we did a lot of experiments or exercises focusing in our new framework that was a screen, and to see each other through the screen, to hear each other through the screen, being aware of the feedback, being aware of the frozenness that sometimes happens, being aware of many things that take part in this distant collaboration. But I think it was also a learning and interesting in its own way.
Yeah, I guess a challenge for a lot of people's. It kind of leads me to the question: if through being in this moment of technological development that we are, and also experiencing now the effects of the global pandemic, if we will ever see the re-emergence of music culture as it happened before the COVID pandemic, or if that we will see now a wave of kind of like musicians adapting more digital tools out of necessity, and kind of like and how this is gonna basically have a lasting impact on for instance, for instance, the jazz musicians are, of course, a genre of music that is very dependent on interplay, on being in a room together, of having communication going on. So maybe we will see new developments of jazz to come out of this. it makes you think, at least, you know.
Yeah, for example, I've been also really interested in how to include previous recorded music or music made by electronic devices into acoustic settings with others. Yeah, I think it's a space of experimentation as well to try to make this interplay with recorded music and humans, like musicians in the moment.
Yeah, for sure. And also it would be interesting to see, like, of course, a lot of times it's something that you work more and more with in contemporary jazz as well. This idea of integrating kind of sound design and working in a cross acoustical and digital medium as well, which in a way can have many effects. I think it's always interesting to work like as you put it, through using essentially collages of audio together, you know, and kind of like seeing how can that kind of like influence a response in some way in how the musicians are kind of like responding. In a way, it's a very it can open many doors for kind of like creating new musical rooms, I guess. How really do you in your experience, how do you see the perspectives for like acoustic jazz and contemporary jazz in the light of also looking into these new digital platforms of how to use for instance visual artists as well, who are kind of like mapping out the transience of the music and able to apply a visual a digitally visual dimension to live performed music.
Yeah, I think in some ways jazz, the tradition of jazz, is becoming a bit like a classical tradition, in the way that there will be a part of it or a repertoire that is gonna keep being played, and it's gonna be still a classic to learn for the new jazz musicians that are coming. And in the other way, I think we are seeing already that everything, it's coming more visual. There's usually this talking about videos, for example, for songs, and I think they're coming more into the stage, so the visual aspect specifically, and also with this pre-recorded music, and interacting more and more with electronic music as well.
To me, that's always been like a fest, like a very kind of like hard idea to come around, this idea of how to really communicate with a machine, with a computer program in music, in a musical sense. You know, how can you really have that level of control of micro kind of like micro sound design that you can have in an acoustic instrument, and how can you really have a meaningful conversation between these two mediums that seems in a way so
far away.
Yeah, exactly.
I also thought for some time that it was difficult, for example, when improvising. I thought it was easier to improvise with acoustic instruments.
Hmm?
But in the time, I've learned that when you have a computer to make music with a synthesizer, it's more about learning the mindset of creating music together. That is the same.
Yeah.
It's just the medium is different. So of course you have to have different skills to control your medium.
Right.
But in the same, the idea, the interaction that occurs between acoustic and is kind of the same. It's like a conversation, no? We always put this metaphor for music, and it's like having a conversation, no? With someone in an other language or abstract sound.
Yeah, maybe in that way you can think of music as being one of the key areas of innovation, really, that kind of like pushes advancement, a technological and artistic advancement that is kind of like communicating to everybody on a very emotional level, this idea that experience of life really changes. You know, with the development of digital technology and the development of not only the technological development, but also the level of safety, kind of like changes in the world. You know, the world is not as it used to be. You know, and that's something, you know, that I think is being communicated in music in a fascinating way. You know, especially because a lot of times music, when we listen to music, you know, we can kind of be through the lens of nostalgia, of looking back into the pre-digital kind of like life, experience, and often, you know, sometimes, like if you listen to electronic music, it can sometimes sound a little bit dystopian, almost, you know, because it is such a challenging concept. This idea that we, in a way, we migrate our experience away from the live room, into a kind of like more personalized.
But I think I mean, I wouldn't like at all to lose this acoustic relation with an instrument, because for example, it's when you discover the what you can do with this acoustic instrument, it gives you a lot as a human. It gives you a lot, but I think optimistically about electronic music, because I think we look also for this kind of warmth at the end. So even the medium changes constantly. I think we, as humans, we look always for this relating to the medium or relating to others. Yeah. So it's about finding ways to connect with this new technology and mediums, and that is constantly changing. Yeah,
for sure.
So I think we always try to find that familiarity of what we have learned before and try to translate it into new settings
of kind of re-emerging in a way. It makes me think about this guy Alex Braga, who is a composer, Italian composer that created this a software called Mint. Which was a software that would basically live record and live process the input of an improviser, of an instrumental improviser, and then through an act of kind of artificial, of like an algorithm, it will kind of like kind of process the audio in a way that was related to multi-channel processing. So it would essentially create the effect that a musician would be improvising together with a machine, and that they would be improvising together but none of them could do it without the other. You know, it was like a mutual kind of like connection between
feedback
the two. Between the algorithm and the human. So that also, you know, kind of like to me it's always like an interesting
ways, to relate,
kind of like idea of how to basically digitally interface with this weird technology.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I guess even though I guess also, you know, that the traditions of acoustical music, they are also in our minds in a way that we would kind of somehow try to emulate in some way the kind of like, even, you know, like the old forms of like or I would say older formats of music, you know, like we would try to find a way to expand on the development and the history of music, not in a even though the field of music is being disrupted as a general, we would kind of like find the same kind of like the intimacy of, for instance, a live performance or these things. We would try to find ways to maybe come back to this kind of like this experience of music.
Yeah, I think so. Is what we talking about, this familiarity, to find familiarity and intimacy and this acoustic feeling in new media, new technology and devices.
Yeah,
I think so.
Right, yeah. So so I think, you know, it's also something that we've seen to slowly like it's definitely something I'm looking very much forward to also see, like how the scene of contemporary jazz is gonna kind of like bounce back from the pandemic, you know, to see like what has changed, what is still the same.
I think, well, maybe just contemporary jazz is also really difficult to see or say what is exactly contemporary jazz. But for me, it's anything or any music that has its roots on the jazz tradition, but it's also has the roots or point the focus on what is happening now, no, in the present moment. And because in the present moment we have so many branches and fields, it can be actually really sounding classical or sounding electronic, or sounding like contemporary classical music, sounding more noise, sounding more punk. It really can take many directions.
Yeah.
I would say my personal approach to it, it's more with this, is related with contemporary classical music.
Yeah.
And also these more advanced, complex rhythms that I'm really attracted to. And it kind of reminds me also of these electronic sounds, because you get to play a lot with rhythm and complex rhythm. So for me, it's more related to the sounds or the inspiration of classic and contemporary music. Yeah, where you focus a lot on timbre.
Yeah.
And explore with the timbre of things. But of course, again, new music or contemporary classical music is taking now a lot of directions. And I would say also it's taking a performativity direction that it was not taking before.
Yeah.
in that sense, maybe I'm also related because I use performance in my concepts, in my it's just always difficult to define.
Right. Yeah. But it's in some way it's connected. You know. Also, this idea that you can kind of bring it like you can find ways like to communicate music in a way that a computer would never understand through, for instance, also the body movement in a way. So in a way it's kind of like I think you know that what you do when you use performance, for instance, and also the emergent field of kind of like having more multidisciplinary performatic jazz and classical as well, because I think also there's a link between the two traditions.
Yeah.
It's a way to kind of like reinvent the contact with an audience, you know, and the people around you as well, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe people have really gotten used so much to an auditive format through digital mediums that what they really have a longing for is perhaps also the experimental part of it, you know, to really physically connect with the performer in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. When we are going into a concert hall or a place that you have a space where you can perform, even if you just do sound, I think it has its own performativity and it has its own idiosyncrasy and a unique experience for the audience. So I really like to explore this experience. How can the audience experience a different performativity, or not just focusing on sound, but other inputs, other artistic expression that can happen.
Right.
For me, it's quite connected.
Yeah.
And that's why I use it.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I guess I found the sound as a connector of my interest, but definitely I feel connected to movement as well, and even theater, poetry, visual art.
Yeah.
So that's why I like to do these collaborations and bring these people in.
Amazing. That's great. So I will definitely be looking forward for future Onbeat performances, and also to see kind of like how it develops. I know you've been also working on creating some studio recordings as well. So we'll look forward for the release as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And I will say that it was a very pleasant talk with you today, Beatriz, and yeah, it will be interesting as well to see how all of the projects kind of like shape up, and yeah.
Thank you so much for this nice time.
Thank you.
Having me.
And thank you everybody who has been listening to this episode, and we'll be back soon with more updates as well on the residency program and the live sessions and everything. So definitely stay in the loop for that to happen. And with this regard, I will say thank you everybody for listening, and have an amazing time.
stå, hvor man kryber tilbage under dynen og prøver at holde stumperne af hjertet sammen, så man kan trække vejret, uden at det sprøjter med blodet over det hele, og det får varmt under dynen, og solen kaster sine lyslevende stråler vinkelret mod ruden, så man sætter sig op og lader øjenlågene ligge langsomt op og ned. Huden vokser mikroskopiske bakketøj, koger og konjunktur. Op og nedgangen, hvis sum er akkurat lige ned. Nervebanernes vejsystem